That's pretty straightforward. Now let's talk about some common misconception when it comes to having family and having a business deduct their family costs, because there's a lot of bad social media advice out there that if you put your family on as board of directors or board members of your business, then all of a sudden all those costs for family trips will be deductible, which is actually wrong, because board of directors are not considered employees, which is going to be an important part of what is deductible for family members. So just because you put your family members as board of directors doesn't mean that they're automatically going to qualify for 100% business deduction if you take family trips anywhere. If you take your dependents or your wife over to a conference, just because they're board of directors doesn't mean that you could deduct their cost as well. There's going to be very specific rules of what qualifies to deduct your spouse's cost and your dependent's cost, even if they're board of directors. But that board of director rule doesn't fly. Really, the main thing is that they have to meet these three criteria. So spouse or dependents is that they have to be real employees. And when I say real employees, that means they have to be on W-2. And then there has to be a business purpose and a real legitimate business purpose on why they're there. It can't just be admin work or they're just there to help or to socialize. They have to be there for real work. And the third part is that it has to be deductible on its own, meaning that they would have gone and you have paid that expense even if you weren't there as a business owner. So you would have sent your spouse over to talk to that client whether you're there or not. Like, that's just a normal business expense, right? So making sure that the client understands that. So if they're only going because you as the owner is going and they're just there to accompany you, that's not a business expense. They have to have a legitimate reason why they're going. And remember, board members are not employees. They're usually 1099 contractors. So because of that, they don't qualify under these three, that first criteria of being a real employee, which is a W-2 employee. 1099s are not considered employees. So making sure that you understand that, and that if clients hear this on social media, that you explain it to them that, hey, they have to actually be a W-2 employee to qualify. So let's talk about the step-by-step to make this legitimate. Is one, make your spouse or dependent an employee. And when they're an employee, making sure that they're actually a real employee, that they're doing real business work on the day-to-day for the business, and for the business trip itself, that they're doing something that's legitimate for the business, real work for the business that's necessary for the business. And then the third thing is think about, hey, would they go even if you as a business owner were not going? Meaning that you would have sent them to do that business work regardless of whether you're going or not. Now let's make this legit. Let's make this legitimate for the client, and we're going to make sure that they follow this template right here. This template is going to be super helpful so they understand what they need to do and to make it legitimate, because the last thing you want is that they're going to get audited and they don't have all these things in order. And really, it's super simple. And there's two, I guess, sides of the coins here, right? This is like, oh, it's kind of a nuisance to do this. It seems kind of pointless to, go through all these things where you have to write who you're meeting with and things like that. But really, it's so simple. And the other side of the coin is that what happens if the clients get audited and the client's going to be like, hey, you didn't tell me I needed to just, all I had to do is just write exactly what my kid did at this event or what my spouse did at this event and who they met with. Like, that's all I had to do to prove my legitimacy of this business. And you didn't tell me to do that. And now the auditor is disallowing $5,000 of my deduction because of this. Well, that's a position you don't want to be in either, right? So we want to make sure clients understand that, hey, these are things you need to do, which is, one, you need to make sure that the W-2 is there, have a job description and real roles for that employee, whether it's a spouse or a dependent, and have evidence that they contributed to the travel, making sure that, hey, are there photos, are there notes being taken, whatever it is, we need to make sure that there's evidence, have the receipts, of course, and have a business purpose written below. And this is what we're going to do to get that business purpose solidified and legitimate. One is the date of the travel or the cost incurred. And then the second part is, what was the spouse or dependent's contribution? What did they do? What was necessary for the business that they had to be there and do it for the business? And remember, helpful work or social media work or social work, socializing, admin work, that doesn't count. And then the next one is meals. If they're deducting meals on these travels, what is it that they did with the meal, right? So you have to make sure that who you're meeting with, what was discussed, the date and the time, all those important things. So making sure that when it comes to each receipt, you have this template attached to it in a way, right? Where they have the full explanation, because the last thing you want is the client to say, hey, you didn't tell me that I had to provide these type of simple instructions on what was legitimate. And now I'm getting audited and I don't have the proof that's necessary to prove that these are legitimate business expenses. So making sure clients understand they follow this template. It can be considered a nuisance, and it can be considered just over the top, kind of anal about it, but really we need to let clients know it's super simple. And the worst case is that you get audited, and because you didn't do this simple thing, now you're not getting that legitimate deduction that you should have gotten. That is how we're going to deduct business expenses. So if clients want to deduct family members or personal trips, making sure clients understand the weekend sandwich rule is going to be important when it comes to trying to deduct personal items in the middle of that business trip. And then also, if they want to deduct family members, they must follow specific rules to deduct it. It's possible, but they have to follow these specific rules. It's not as easy as just filming something for 5 minutes and saying that's a business reason where you could deduct your whole trip. Just because you answer emails on vacation doesn't mean that vacation is a trip. Just because your family members are on a board of directors and you listed them on there doesn't mean that you could just take them on all your trips and deduct all of their costs. We have to make sure that clients understand it's not like that, and social media is not portraying it correctly. So we, as their accountant, have to make sure that they follow the rules and that we do it legitimately. And this template is the first step of making sure it's legitimate. That sandwich rule, I have to emphasize it a lot because it's such a great tip. All they have to do, if they're going to spend an extra weekend on in that area because they want to sightsee, just find a real legitimate business reason on that following Monday. As long as they have a legitimate business meeting on that Monday, we can deduct that weekend trip.